Hey, Markos.
Hi, good morning. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I hate to admit it, but I had run upstairs and I was mixing to make pretzels, and I completely mixed it out. Things we do to entertain ourselves when what are we, day 25 of the oxygen now? Or
I know, I've kind of lost track. Where are you now?
my wife and I lived in Southeast Alaska for years, and then when I started practicing law, we moved to Seattle, and so we live outside of Seattle now, but the operation is in Alaska.
So you don't actually have to be on site.
I would like to be, but it's just I just can't at the moment. There's still the travel restrictions and quarantining rules are still being defined. Um, I have a good crew up there that are managing the farm operation and also the catch can nursery operation. So I don't necessarily need to be there every day, but it would be my preference. During the build out and first year of operation, I probably spent part of 35 weeks up there last year. So
Okay.
yeah, it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about SeaGrove overall? And you're the founder, or?
The concept of mariculture in Alaska and particularly this company is something that I've been working on for 4 or 5 years. But I've been involved in fisheries for probably 35 years, which is really kind of how the genesis of all of this started with seafood and my interest in the seafood industry. And I worked in a processing facility in Ketchikan, Alaska from 85 to 97. I started practicing law in the seafood and maritime industry, spent about 2 decades practicing law in the seafood industry. Most of the fisheries in Alaska and on the Pacific coast are what I would call mature fisheries, which is, there isn't a big biomass out there. They're on a sustainable harvest schedule and process. And so we started looking at mariculture, in particular shellfish and kelp mariculture, as something that would be interesting in developing. I started looking at this and saying, why hasn't this happened? It seems like such an obvious fit. And to have something that utilizes the great infrastructure we already have, is sustainable, is a non-extraction based economic model, which is, and that's one of the realities of Alaska. It's been an extraction based economy for forever, from the time that, well, for at least from the point of when Western civilization came to Alaska. And this was something that was so different from that. I mean, it really is a paradigm shift.
How big is the farm right now? Like, what does the farm look like if you were to go to it?
So the farm is this first site is 127 acres, which I think is the largest offshore farm site, certainly macroalgae farm site in North America. So basically, what you do is you lease an area of water. It's a tidelands lease from the state, and it took me several years to get the state to agree to this because they'd not really seen this before. They hadn't tried to, nobody tried to do this. There'd been smaller scale shellfish and some small scale kelp farming operations in other places in the state, but nobody really kind of trying to take this to, something that would, the goal is to be able to be competitive on the global stage. And so it's 100 acres. So the kelp component is 100 acres. And it's a little deceptive because, all the kelp apparatus, it floats on the top of the water, and it's anchored into an anchor system. And all of the anchors have to be within the lease area, which is a Latin long rectangle. But because the water is 100 to 200 feet deep, where the site is, there's an anchor scope that's required, right? So that your anchor can be there. The actual farmable surface area is about is about 35 acres, which is still big. And in that we have there are parallel. We have two, what we call them catenaries, which run about 3,000 feet down each side, and then the grow lines hang between them. and we've got about 230 grow lines in the water right now. We put in about 25 miles of seeded line, and not all of them have performed as the same level. I mean, it's like farming, right? You know, some things do better than others, but we have. But so basically, we've got a 3,000 foot long grow out. That's 3,000 feet by 600 feet. I call it grow out array. Basically, it's a floating system that allows the kelp to grow, and the grow lines are depending on where they are in their grow system, somewhere between say 2 to 5 meters below the surface, and they're horizontal, and so that you could keep them in the water column at a consistent level, so you get the same amount of light, and that's really an important component to this, is being able to keep that light consistent.
And you're growing 3 different types, is that correct?
2 kinds of kelp now. We're permitted for 3. We can do Saccharina latissima, which is one we weren't successful in the nursery of propagating it this year, but we'll try again. We were successful with Alaria marginata, which is a ribbon or a winged kelp. It's similar to the Alaria that's grown on the East Coast, but it's a little different genus. And Nereocystis luteana, which is a bullwhip kelp, which is one of the giant kelps. And so the bullwhip and the Alaria are what's in the farm now. And it's probably 85% bullwhip kelp and about 15 or 20% Alaria. The bullwhip kelp is an annual, and but it's so it has a long meaty stipe with a nematocyst at the top that floats it, and then off of that nematocyst are blades that can be 20, 30, 40 feet long.
But that's what you'll be harvesting, that top?
We'll harvest the whole thing.
Okay.
So there's the stipe is kind of a real nice meaty stipe that can be used in lots of different things. People use it in pickles and relishes, and you can make chutneys out of it. There's a variety of different products that are already stipes, and the blades are different, but similarly can be used. It's more of a traditional kind of kelp blade structure. Most of the stipe is ground and used. And there's a company out of Juneau, Alaska called Barnacle Foods. Barnacle Foods, they have a number of really great products. You should look them up online. It's these younger folks. They've been involved for 4 or 5 years, and they just started making these great salsas and hot sauces and things based on seaweeds, and it's great stuff. And then the blades are often dried or used in different applications as a dried. You could use the blades as a salad. You could blanch them and slice them and use them in salad. And you could use, and actually I think that's where we'll try to push as much of our product as we can. The virus reality is complicated. There's a lot of the potential markets right now are just not available. But
I was going to ask, how is the virus affecting you guys? But also, in normal times, what is your market in Alaska or nationally, globally?
The focus there are 2 components to it. There is an Alaska market that is primarily focused on providing ingredients for the folks that are making these types of value-added food products, whether it be jellies or salsas or hot sauces or pickles or various things like that. So that's one space. There's another space which is, to use them in ingredients in food, primarily restaurant-based food, because many of these seaweeds you can use interchangeably with, say, a heavy green. So we've got recipes to use them in ravioli. We've got recipes to use them in we developed a really nice vegetarian chowder using a soup stock and eating the meaty part of the bull kelp stipe as the replacement for clams or in your chowder, and it has a real nice texture to it. It's really great. We sold it at a local restaurant here, just to kind of see what folks thought of it, and it went really well. Um, so, providing that raw material to go into that food service and restaurant marketplace is something where we think there's real value, and it's a great way to introduce uh, people to eating more kelp, because that's one of our primary goals here, is to get the North American population more familiar with eating kelp. I think most folks are familiar with seaweed as either associated with sushi or the seaweed snacks you get at Costco.
With
The
chip snacks, yeah.
it's a different kind of kelp than what we produce, but what it does is it introduces them to seaweeds as a potential food source, and seaweeds are, they're good.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, like, why seaweed is so awesome, why is it so awesome?
Well, a number of things. One, it is, we only grow indigenous species, and that's by design and by regulation. We can only propagate that which grows within 50 kilometers by water of our farm site. So we're growing indigenous species that grow in the area where the farm site is. Two, seaweeds are amazing. They are. Uh, Bull kelp is one of the fastest growing organisms in the planet, and at its peak can grow a foot a day.
Wow.
And so we can grow that in the ocean with no inputs, no fertilizer, no, we don't have to add nutrients. The ocean builds it. And we believe that our carbon footprint will be neutral or negative, because the seaweeds are about 20 times more effective at removing carbon from their environment than trees are. So when we plant 100 acres of seaweeds in the ocean, it is a carbon sink, and a really efficient and effective one. And that is a really terrific kind of environmental service that they will provide. They are geographically within the vicinity of the farm. Um, they are a counteragent to ocean acidification, and a lot of these things are really just kind of bonuses that go along with the product itself, which is highly nutritious. It's got potassium, it's got magnesium, it's got protein. It's because they are not technically a plant; they're a protist. They have some characteristics of both plants and non-plants. One is that they are the only non-meat source of natural vitamin B12,
Okay.
which is something that I think folks don't really know. They have protein, they have carbohydrates, they have lots of fiber in them. They are, the spectrum of nutrients that are delivered through seaweeds is really difficult to find in any other plant. You may find one plant that has, like soybeans, that have real high protein contents, but when you look across the spectrum of other nutrients, they're not going to have the potassium and the magnesium and the vitamin B12 and all of the other components that you have. So what makes them so cool is they grow really fast with no inputs. Once we put them in the water, the ocean grows them. They provide a significant and traceable environmental service to their area that they're in. They taste good. I mean, they're really a great food. And there's a book called Slime. If you haven't read it, you should look it up. It's called Slime. It's really interesting, and it's kind of a look at algae, including macroalgae, through time and the various uses, and it is the story of algae and macroalgae is unparalleled, and it is linked to the existence and advancement of all life on Earth. I mean, that's how important they are to our ecosystem, to There's some research that says that those populations of pre-humanoids that had seaweed in their diet advanced quicker, and their brains developed faster than those that didn't. This is how pivotal the algae are in our environment. What makes it good, I think, for us as a business model is that if we can produce it at a cost that is competitive with other vegetables in the market, and make it available for folks in the supermarket and on menus around the country, I think there is a significant part of the population that will, when you have all of these other components with it, will choose that over spinach, will choose that over kale, will choose, but that choice isn't available right now. Because when you go to your supermarket, you find seaweed snacks, but you don't find in your vegetable case an opportunity for a blanched seaweed that you can bring home and cook with the food that you eat every day.
So what's that process like? So you guys are harvesting every year.
Right.
Both are annual species.
And this is our first year of operation.
Have you harvested yet?
No, we are.
No.
We're nigh on it. We're getting pretty close. We're probably 2 or 3 weeks away from our first harvest.
Oh wow! Well, good luck.
Thank you.
What's the process from harvest to dinner plate? COVID-19 aside, what would the normal process be?
The normal process is that the seaweeds are growing on these lines, and they across these lines that are 400 or 500 feet long, and take one end of that seaweed and you'll bring it on to the harvesting vessel, and the kelp will be cut from that and go into totes. And then those totes are taken to the processing facility, where they'll be rinsed and cleaned and maintained and cut. So, for example, with a bull kelp, you'll take the stipes, you'll cut the blades from the stipes. The blades will go one direction, and they'll either get ground or they'll be sectioned into a frozen in blocks. And the stipe will do the same. Before you, and we'll do some of it in the processing plant, where you take that kelp and you blanch it. And when you see like a kelp salad that you would see with sushi,
mm-hmm.
that color is natural. That is not a dyed color. When you take seaweeds and blanch them, they turn this amazing, vivid green. It's remarkable. And then after you blanch it, it's really ready to eat. If you blanched it at the sufficient temperature for a sufficient amount of time, then you can slice it and use it in whatever you're going to use it in, whether it be you could pasta or salads or whatever you want. So it's really pretty easy to cook, but you do have to, you do want to, and you need to blanch it first.
And so that processing is happening at your facility, or you guys are doing that?
We are going to custom process with a third party. One of the reasons that it made operationally makes sense to do this in Alaska is there are so many seafood processing facilities already there. The infrastructure is there, so we don't have to duplicate that capital expenditure by building our own plants. For example, in Southeast Alaska, where our plant is, there are 42 seafood processing facilities in Southeast Alaska. Much more capacity available than we would ever need to utilize. And kelp is great because most of the seafood infrastructure is built for the summer salmon season, at least in Southeast Alaska. So that's really like mid to late June through September. And we plant in October, grows through the winter, we harvest in the spring. By the time we get to salmon, we're done. So it's really an off-season, counter-season product. Perfect. So it should fit really well.
You guys have plans to do oysters, I heard?
There is a plan to do oysters. The site is permitted to do oysters. and we'll see. The goal was to start doing the oyster production this year, but with the COVID reality and the economy doing what it is, we'll see whether that happens. Still hopeful, but I think there's a lot of history yet to be written about what this COVID-19 economic impact will look like.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk a little bit about what the day-to-day operations are at the farm? Like how much, it seems like more hands-off than a lot of aquaculture.
It is, but it isn't. You're growing, you're growing things in the ocean, and the ocean is unpredictable. The weather is variable every day. You've got tidal forces, so you have wear and tensioning issues on your gear, so it doesn't get tangled and you don't damage the kelp that's growing there. So they're not out there every day, but nearly every day they're out there doing something on the farm, whether it be tensioning lines to make sure that over time they don't work their way out, make sure that we don't have logs haven't drifted into the kelp, make sure that one of the things that we have to do, because bullwhip kelp is buoyant. Alaria, the ribbon kelp, is neutrally buoyant, so you could kind of set it and forget it. You still have to watch it and you monitor it. But the bull kelp is very buoyant because it has these buoyant nematocysts at the top. And as they grow, they become more buoyant as they get larger. And when they reach the surface, two things happen. One, they stop growing. And two, they can get damaged, they can get sunburned, they can freeze, and all of which are bad. And so what we do to prevent that is we have to add weight to those lines over the course of the season, and we have to drop them deeper into the water column. So, where they started at two to 3 meters, now they're down to 5 to 10 meters.
Hmm.
And
how far offshore are you guys? Because you said you're 100 to 200 feet deep.
Yeah, well, it's pretty deep out there. I mean, it's in a place called Doyle Bay, which is about 6 miles from a local town, about 1,500 people. It's in a bay. The grow array is probably 300 yards offshore, where it starts. But it's a fairly big footprint, and just the kelp portion of it is a half a mile long.
But so people are going out there in boats to maintain the.
So a number of boats that go out each day. The typical crew working out there is 5 to 6 people, and they're out there, weather permitting, probably really about 4 days a week is what it's worked out to, given the weather.
Awesome. And so you said this is the first site, but you have plans for.
We have plans for more. I have 4 more sites that are this large or larger that are in process, and it's a public process, and competing uses analysis, and it takes time. So we're working on them, and we'll see how long it takes, but to get those through the system and hopefully get them issued and then get them built out. But but yeah, we try to expand the area as much as we can.
And how are local Alaskans feeling about it?
Generally, the reception's been really positive. I think that like I said, I think they see that the non-extraction based economic model is something that they like. There are large native communities in those areas. And I've done and continue to try to do a material amount of outreach to them to make sure that that they know what we're doing, and that it's well received. But so far it's been really positive, both in the state management level and in the local communities. Many of these places where this farming is optimal are places that are economically challenged, and so this provides an opportunity for for local employment. Like we've hired. We've got six folks right now working out of the local community and doing work that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So there's very, very positive, and frankly, it's a very positive message, I think, and that has value.
Yeah.
Because of whether it's the economic development component that resonates with the party. It will it's a new industry. If it's environmentally if an industry that's environmentally friendly is important to you, it provides that as well. It is the being able to provide food and food security through domestic food production. That's also an important component of it. So I think generally it's a really positive message, and I think it's a really positive industry that we're looking at creating.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Are you guys focusing at all for distribution on cities around the U.S. that already kind of value those things and are maybe willing to pay for those ecosystem benefits and stuff like that?
I think that's a big part of our message, and that's a big part of what I perceive as the opportunity in the marketplace for this. Whether it be the West Coast, I think is pretty well situated for that. Whether it be Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they're already used to eating things from the ocean, and I think the sustainable, environmentally friendly farm to table concept is something that they value, and I think that we'll continue to see that value.
Yeah. So how much are you planning to harvest this year?
All of it. Yeah.
How much is that?
Well, that's a good question, and we were trying to kind of game that out. I think it's probably going to be a couple hundred tons of product this year, wet weight. So probably maybe 400,000 pounds, maybe 500,000 pounds, depending on when in the season we harvest it. Because part of that is how long do you let it mature, and the longer you grow it, the more biomass there's going to be. But other things may impact that too. Like kelps are a base for many things, and over the course of the year, lots of organisms come and live on kelps. And so if you're going to use that for food, you don't want that. So there are trade-offs the longer you let it grow. So I think this year we're going to just try to do a smaller but higher quality pack. And given that the restaurant and hospitality industry is basically shut down nationwide, it's going to be a challenge to find a home for this product. We are hopeful that that this reality will change in the coming months, and those markets will reopen. I think they will, and I think being in the sustainable, nutritious domestic food food area is going to be a good place to be, and I also think that the market will be receptive to those healthy options.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Can you give me a summary of like how you guys are advancing sustainable seafood as an industry?
I think that what we're doing is a real paradigm shift in the sustainable food production, because of all of the things where you can have your triple bottom line experience, where you're doing environmentally friendly food production that is nutritious, that is local, and carries with it this strong and identifiable environmental benefit. I mean, that is, what other industry can make all of those claims validly?
It's huge.
it is, it is a real paradigm shift, and we can do it quickly, and we can, and in Alaska, I think we're uniquely situated because we have so much pristine, clean water to grow these seaweeds in. And I think that's a really important part of this. And there's really nowhere else. There's really nowhere else that has all of the components that we have: the clean water, the available species, the processing and transportation networks, the workforce. I mean, it's all there, and this is and I think we can really kind of change the way people look at the origin of their food.
Super exciting. I did remember my other question though, which was, since you guys are out in open ocean, have you had many kind of wildlife interactions, whether
Not much. No, really, we haven't. There are, one of the concerns. We're not really concerned about the smaller pinnipeds and seals and sea lions and sea otters, which are everywhere, because they just swim. They just swim through the array and they come and go. And the one concern would be whales. But what we've seen is that they just avoid the whole thing. And we'll see humpbacks out in the channel out in front and sometimes near the bay, but they stay away from what we're doing. We've not had one within since we've been out there, and it's been about 6 months now, within, I don't know, half a mile of the kelp array, which has been really nice. So no, we don't. There really isn't predation. We don't really have, at least we haven't to date, had any adverse mammal interactions, which is great. I mean, that's what we want. We want to be we want to be really good for that. We expect. I expect when this kelp gets fully grown, it'd be that, and we get, you get this this blanket of kelp on the surface, that you're going to see juvenile fish use it as a protective layer and things like that. So really, it's been good. Been really pleased with it. And that was kind of an unknown because there really isn't an example we can look at that would tell us what we can expect, because no one in North America is really doing what we're doing.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of the kelp farming and seaweed farming was happening in Asia, and did that stop a little after Fukushima, or?
Yes. Well, only regionally. The primary producer of seaweeds in the world is China, and they produce probably 95% of the seaweeds. Vast majority of that is consumed domestically. The concern that I have with many Chinese seaweeds is the quality of the water. They grow a lot. They have inexpensive labor to allow them to grow that, but they also have. I think there's a fair amount of substances in water, and your seaweed is. It really is whatever the water is, and so if you've got inorganic arsenic, or you've got other contaminants in the water, kelp is going to take that up, and it will be part of it. The Japanese production is down about 60% over the last 20 years, primarily for three reasons. One is labor. They have a generational shift where the younger generations just aren't inclined to go out and farm kelp like their parents and grandparents did. Two, Fukushima did affect a large area of kelp production, and it's just simply stopped. And three, ocean warming has impacted those populations, so they're not growing as much, particularly in the southern part of Japan. Korea is also a heavy producer of seaweeds, and is really, probably currently the highest quality producers are Japanese and Korean. If you look on the origin label of most of those seaweed snacks, most of that is Korean kelp.
Have you been to any of those farms ever?
Not yet. I'm looking forward to the chance, but I haven't yet. Someday.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all I wanted to talk about for now. But
Well, feel free to reach out anytime if you have more questions.
yeah, and good luck with the harvest. And I mean, could I expect any to come down to Miami in the next couple of years, or?
I would love to. I think that would be great. We're looking to build opportunity wherever we can.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, also good luck with your pretzels.
Yeah, but thanks. Yeah, I got another hour before they're ready. Yeah, it's my first time with pretzels. We'll see.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure.
the benefit of quarantine, I guess. You like try new things like that.
Yeah, I got a captive audience. You know, they're going to eat it no matter what they do, what they turn out like.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will talk to you later then.
All right. Thanks very much.
All right. Bye.
Talk to you soon, Sarah. Thanks. Bye.